you're having good summers, taking fun vacations. I recently just got back from Disney World. I took my 3-year-old son down there. I thought he was a little young for it. My brother lives in Disney World. Well, he doesn't live in Disney World, but he works in Disney World. And he lives down there, and I have family that lives down there. My dad lives down there. And so we had planned to go down there last year to visit when COVID hit. And so we couldn't go. So we kept our plane tickets, you know, they were still good. And we went down there, and we decided to do the Magic Kingdom and the Animal Kingdom. The Magic Kingdom we got into for free, which was nice, because my brother works there. And, you know, my son had a really good time. And he, you know, he was very excited, and his favorite ride was the Buzz Lightyear ride, because he is absolutely enamored with Buzz Lightyear and all things Toy Story. But, you know, it was really making me think about Pixar. I've been watching so many Pixar movies. My son is very into them. And, you know, when you watch them so many times, you really start to pick up on things, Easter eggs, you know, obviously there's many. And you start to kind of consider them like texts that you're critiquing in your head. I don't know if you do that. My husband and I do that. And so we have very strong opinions now on the Pixar movies. And so I was thinking that I would do a series where I do a makeup look that's inspired by each of the Pixar movies and kind of give my take on the movie and some of my thoughts. I don't know if that's interesting to you, but we'll see how that goes. You can let me know if you like this idea or you don't. So I'm going to be starting with Luca, which is the most recent. My son absolutely loves Luca. And it's funny because, like, you know, there's the way kids watch Pixar movies and there's the way adults watch them. And if you look at those lists of, like, Pixar movies ranked, you know, the number one movie is, like, always WALL-E. And, I mean, I do think WALL-E is a fantastic movie. I mean, it really probably is empirically the best Pixar movie. But I can't get my son to watch WALL-E. He doesn't want to watch it. It's not interesting to him. Like, he doesn't get, like, the cuteness of the little romance between the robots. So we can all in our adult stages be like, well, WALL-E is empirically the best and Cars 2 is the worst. But my son loves Cars 2, so, like, I don't know. And so I've been trying to see, like, what is it about them that makes them appeal to kids, makes them good, makes them have value. Maybe at some point I'll make my own list of the ranked Pixar movies, but I'm going to start not by listing Pixar movies, but by putting on some primer on my eyes. Because I'm going to start with the eyes. So, just to give you some background if you haven't seen Luca yet, it's about a young boy named Luca, and he is a sea monster. He's an adorable little sea creature, and he lives with his mom and dad, who are played by Maya Rudolph and Jim Gaffigan, which is kind of fun, although I do think that they are kind of underused and not entirely getting to be the funny people that they are. He lives with his mom and dad and his grandmother under the sea, and he is like a shepherd of fish, I think. That's his, like, life. Alright, so I'm starting with this. I think I'm slightly allergic to these pencils, but I'm not gonna keep this makeup on all day, so. Okay. So anyway, he's a shepherd of fish, and we don't really get to know that much about him. I mean, one of the themes I'm gonna come back to is that I think Luca would have been better served being a series. Because there's a lot good in it, but because it's so short, you don't get to, like, know him and what his life has really been like. And I kind of do think that's, like, a little bit of a failing on the part of the movie. I gotta try to get these even. I don't care if they're messy because I'm gonna cover them up, but I'm just kind of making guiding lines here. This color's so light it doesn't really show up, but that's alright. So anyway, Luca is, I guess we're supposed to understand that his life is kind of boring. It's a little bit like Little Mermaid. Well, it's not a little bit like a Little Mermaid, it's big like a Little Mermaid, if it was written about a boy. In the beginning of the movie, before you even meet Luca, you see there's like a fisherman out on the water, and they are talking about the sea monster thing and, like, the lore, I guess. I don't even remember really what they're talking about. They're listening to music. O mio babino caro, which I love. And they think they see something in the water, and it turns out to be a sea monster. And I guess what we're not actually told by the movie is that since this movie is set in, like, the Italian Riviera, apparently there's, unless you're from there you wouldn't know this, there is a lot of lore about sea monsters in that region. So culturally it's correct, but it's weird because we never get told that, so you just have to know that, I guess, that that's a thing. So anyway, the fishermen think they see something in the water, and it turns out to be a sea monster, and the sea monster is trying to take things from the boat, and they freak out and leave, and I guess that reinvigorates the town's fear of sea monsters, the fact that there was a spotting of one. So you know that there was a sea monster that was up stealing things. So anyway, later on, those things that he stole show up, and Luca sees them. I think it's a clock that he sees, and of course in this, like, very Ariel-like moment, he's like, look at this stuff. He doesn't sing, there's no singing, but he gets excited about this clock, and then he sees more stuff. Okay, this is gonna be hard to do. I'm gonna kind of wing it. And anyway, he starts to follow this trail of stuff, and he sees the gramophone, and I think there's like a compass, and he starts to be really interested in what this stuff is. And then suddenly he sees, like, this creature coming towards him in, like, a scuba diver gear, and he freaks out. And then he meets Alberto, which is who's inside the scuba diver gear, and he is a sea monster, young teenage boy sea monster. And Alberto is, I think, a really interesting character. And this is another reason why I kind of wish that it was a series, because, like, I wanted to know more about Alberto. I kind of, like, didn't care about Luca. Like, I wanted to know more of Alberto's story. So Alberto is a sea monster that has chosen to live up on the land because it's more interesting, and he collects human stuff and has like this big collection that he's very proud of, and he lives in like this tower on this island. Okay, well, that's looking pretty good so far. I know it looks really weird, but trust me. So I'm going to be using this Urban Decay electric palette and a very small brush to kind of define these guys. So Luca follows Alberto up to the surface, and Alberto pulls him out of the water, and immediately he changes into a boy, which he knew would happen. It's not like a shock, because there was like lore in the sea. I don't know. It's like lore in the sea monster culture that you change if you go to the surface when you're dry, I guess. Well, that looks kind of good. But he's sort of horrified that it's happened, and he is never supposed to go there. His mother is very adamant, just like King Triton, that he's never supposed to go to the surface, so he like knows that he's going to be in trouble. And but he stops, and of course he sees like the water and the trees, and it's so beautiful, and oh my god. And now it's like in him, but he runs away. But the next day he can't help it. He like goes back to the surface and finds Alberto again, and they kind of start hanging out, and Alberto takes him into his tower where he has this like collection of stuff. Just putting some sparkle over this to kind of give it some pizzazz. So while they're in the tower, Luca sees a picture of a Vespa, and he's like, what is that? And the poster says that a Vespa is freedom, says it in Italian, and he wants freedom. And so he is like, Alberto, you have all this stuff, you could build a Vespa. And so Alberto's like, oh my god, yes, we're building a Vespa. And so they work together all day and build a Vespa, and it's really sweet, and they have a good time doing that. But then Luca has to leave because he knows he's going to get in trouble. In the meantime, his parents are aware that he's been leaving to go up to the surface, and they are none too pleased with him. Okay, now I'm going to take this color from this palette and kind of go over the line here that I made. So now Luca's parents have brought in Uncle Ugo, who is played by Sacha Baron Cohen. Again, very underused in this role. I mean, I would have loved more Uncle Ugo. He was a funny little moment, but he's literally in the film for like 2 minutes. And Uncle Ugo is from the deep. He lives down in the depths. And he has come to take Luca away down to the depths because Luca's mother is worried about him because she knows he's been going to the surface. And Luca is, understandably horrified. So he decides he's going to escape. And so he, swims away. And he goes and finds Alberto, and he tells Alberto that his parents are trying to send him to the deep. And Alberto's like, let's escape, let's run away, let's go find a Vespa, let's go meet Senor Vespa, and we'll be able to get away forever and just go travel. And so they start to head over to the town, and they finally get there, and it's a town called Porto Rosso. And it's very, I mean, my brother's been to Cinque Terre, and he said that it's pretty spot on for one of the towns that starts with a V. I forget it at this moment. I'm just using this as like a base here, just with my finger. Let me just stop here and say, I know that the creators of the movie are saying that this movie is about friendship and not about a romance. But, I mean, come on. This stuff is like... I know that we don't have to see, like, a sexual relationship everywhere we look. I know, like, we all tend to do that. But if you're trying to tell me that there's, like, not anything remotely romanceful between Alberto and Luca, like... I just think that there is. And I also believe that, the whole movie kind of can serve as like this narrative of being in the closet, because when he's underwater he's not being his true self, and when they come out of the water it's like freedom. And so that scene where they swim across to the town is like so sweet, because they're like free and they're like out of the water and they're being their true selves, and they're like it really does kind of feel like a coming out story. I know that's not what it's supposed to be, but I'm just saying, I feel like it kind of is. That's my opinion. So I'm gonna go into this palette, which is a newer palette that I have called Color Fusion. I just bought it off Amazon. I liked the color selection. I'll take a small fluffy-ish brush and go in with this color. So anyway, they get to the town. Of course, like, it's an adorable little town. I mean, the scenery is just gorgeous. It will make you want to go there for sure. And then they realize quickly that there's like a lot of lore about sea monsters there, and that there's a lot of people like out to kill sea monsters and catch them. So they're in kind of dangerous territory. But then they see this guy drive into town on a Vespa, and they're like, oh my god, there's Senor Vespa. And that guy turns out to be a very, very strange movie villain. His name is Ercole. And what's strange about him is that I have no idea how old he's supposed to be, and I feel like that makes a difference, because he looks, the way that he's drawn, he looks like he's like 30. But he participates in this event that the whole movie is essentially about, the Porto Rosso Cup, which has an age limit of 16, and we know that he lies about his age in order to compete in it. But is he supposed to be 18? Like, I don't know, and that's confusing, because he's like really, really mean, and I don't seem to understand like his motivations for being the way he is if he's an adult. Like, if he's 17 or 18, like, I can kinda get it, but I just don't understand his motivation, and that to me was the problem with that part of the movie. Like, he's too mean and like nasty and violent, and like, I don't understand why this town like caters to him. I don't understand why winning the Porto Rosso Cup makes him like such a celebrity. Like, I don't. And I get the movie takes place, I think it's supposed to take place in like the 50s or 60s, judging by the music. I mean, maybe the town was sort of like provincial and they weren't aware of like how you're supposed to act, but this guy ain't it. It was just confusing to me. I was like, why are you guys letting this guy be this way? It was very strange. some. Okay, I feel like I need a nice blending color. This is an old color that I haven't used in a long time. I think it's the perfect one though. So then, now we're like pretty far into the movie, and we finally meet the female character, who again is like such an interesting character, and we don't get enough time to get to know her. Her name is Giulia, and she's incredibly spunky and weird, and of course she's like an awkward girl and like a little self-conscious, and she looks like a Pixar Peanuts character. Here, I'll show a picture. And she's adorable, and I really like her, and she's smart and spunky, as I said, and determined, and she has all the good qualities that we like in our female characters. But she is obsessed with winning this Porto Rosso Cup. She's never won it. Ercole always wins it. She wants to put an end to his reign of terror, and she wants to win. But so apparently the Porto Rosso Cup is like has three elements. There's a swimming component, and then there's a eating pasta component, and then there's a biking component. And you can have a team where you have 3 people, so one person does each component, but she's never had that because she doesn't have any friends, because, and this is again what contributes to her being an interesting character, her parents are divorced. Her dad lives in Porto Rosso, and she spends the summers with him, but her mom lives in Genoa, and that's where she like goes to school. So she doesn't really like know anybody in Porto Rosso very well, and they're not very nice to her for some reason. So yeah, you have this poor sad girl that has no friends, and she wants to win this cup. And so I'm gonna try some eyeliner here. Yes, all right, just a little bit to define. So the boys decide to team up with Giulia because they realize that they can win prize money, and with the prize money they can win a Vespa, or they can buy a Vespa, an old Vespa, but a Vespa nonetheless, all the same. So they team up with her, they go to her house, they meet her dad, who is kind of another great character, who we don't get to know that much about, but he's like a classic old not old, but like a classic fisherman. He's like this big gigantic guy who's like missing an arm, and you can like not see his eyes because he's like got bushy eyebrows and a bushy mustache. And he makes dinner for her and her new friends, and of course the sea monster kids are like excited to eat this food. It's delicious. It's trenette al pesto, and they're like putting it in their face, which my 3-year-old now thinks is hilarious to do, which is awesome. Okay, now I'm gonna do the rest of my face, and I'm gonna start with what I've been doing, putting on my face, is this Super Goop Play SPF 50. I've been using this as my everyday moisturizer just under my makeup, and I think it's been really good. So anyway, Massimo is the dad. He's sort of supportive of them entering the race, but he's like, we don't have the money, and I haven't been catching much fish, so maybe, like, and they're like, well, we can help. And so, you know, they team up with him to start catching fish, and they help him catch like a lot of fish because they know where the fish hang out, I guess. And he's able to help them with the money to enter the contest. And now Massimo is really starting to like Luca and Alberto because they're helping him, obviously, but they're also with his daughter, and there's just like this kind of like love that builds, which is really sweet. And they're training, and in the meantime, like, they're being bullied by Ercole, which is sort of weird because it's like, why is this old guy like bothering with these poor little kids that are like 14? And they're also like Oh, also, Luca's parents have now come to the town and are in human form and are searching for their kids, for their child, and so that's going on. It's like a lot of hijinks. So the thing is, whenever they get wet even a little bit, they turn back into sea monsters. So they have to, like, even when it like rains or there's dew on them or they get water on themselves, they like reveal that they're sea monsters. So they're trying to like hide it, and it's cute and funny. But then at one point, Luca and Giulia really start connecting because she's really smart and she knows all this stuff about like astrology, and he starts to really take an interest in the astrology. And this starts to kind of create like almost like a love triangle, or at least like a third wheel, like third friend kind of situation that starts to upset Alberto because he's not interested in that, and he wants Luca to himself, and he wants to still like go off and see the world with Luca. But Luca's now like kind of getting sucked into this school idea, and now Luca wants to go to school, and Alberto's like, we can't, we're sea monsters, like that would never work. But Luca is kind of like stuck on this idea. He's like kind of obsessed with learning now, and he asks Giulia if like they could maybe go to her school, and Alberto gets really mad and is like, Giulia, would your school take people that were not human? And then he goes in the water and lets her see that he's a sea monster. And this is like a really intense moment of the movie because Luca completely betrays him and is like, oh no, sea monster. And like the look on Alberto's face, like you cannot tell me there's not more going on between them than friendship. I mean, that betrayal hurts so much in that moment. I'm like, oh, like to the heart. So, you know, Giulia kind of has figured out at this point that Luca is also a sea monster. I mean, she's not an idiot. And she tells him, like, this town is obsessed with hunting sea monsters. Like, you have to leave. It's not worth it. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're doing all this for a Vespa? And so Luca's, like, all upset, and he decides to try to make it right with Alberto. So he goes back, and then you get this story from Alberto. When he goes back to the island to find Alberto, you find out that Alberto's father like abandoned him on this island and told him he was big enough to like take care of himself, and he's been there ever since. And I mean, like, heartbreaking. And also, like, this is what I mean, I want to know more about this poor child. I'm gonna take this liner by Gosh for my under eye. Buff that out a little bit with still on this brush. I'm not using any extra product. Okay. My good old standby, this cheap ass blush that I love so much. Just a little. So anyway, back to the story. So now it comes the time for the Portorosso Cup, and he's gonna enter, Luca's gonna enter on his own because he's gonna win that Vespa for Alberto, and they're gonna travel off into the sunset together. So they start the race, and Luca has to do the swimming part on his own, and he can't be a sea monster, so he like does it in like a scuba outfit. and then he has to eat the pasta, and then he has to go on the bike, and he gets up the hill and he's doing really, really well. And his parents finally see him, but they see that he's like kicking butt, and they're kind of proud of him. And then it starts to rain, of course, and he hides under something so he doesn't get wet. And then you see Alberto coming up the hill with an umbrella to like help him. And it's a very sweet little moment. But then, of course, Hercule comes and they're gonna catch him, and then Luca goes out to save him, and then everybody knows that Luca's a sea monster too, and they go down the hill. It's very exciting, and Luca and Alberto technically actually win the race, but the whole town like wants to harpoon them. But then, of course, Giulia's father, Massimo, is like, no, I know who these kids are. They're Luca and Alberto, and they won. And it's kind of a very sweet moment where they, all realize that that these are just little boys. And everything ends up working out in the end. And then his parents do this like total 180, and they decide that not only are they okay with him going to the surface, but they're gonna send him to school with Giulia. And that's the thing, like, there's not enough time in this movie for that to make sense logically. Like, I could see if it was a series and they developed this over time, but it's just like suddenly they're like okay with this. So the movie ends with like Luca getting on the train with Giulia, and Alberto, who has decided to stay with Massimo and have this like father relationship with him, which is like really sweet, like runs after the train, and it's kind of like this very sweet moment that definitely has some romantic undertones. I mean, literally he's running after the train for this boy that he loves. I mean, that part is really sweet. So this is this new way I've been doing my lips. I'm going to show you. I like this Kiss and Smink, but any nude lipstick will work. If you do that, it like gently overlines. See that? That's pretty cool. I'm going to fill in. So anyway, some of my things about Luca that I think could be better are they could develop these characters more, because they've got a lot there to work with. But aside from the little like romance between these two boys, my favorite thing from the movie is at the beginning when Luca is scared of doing something dangerous. Alberto tells him that he's got a Bruno in his head, and that's like the voice of reason that tells you you're gonna die and that you have to stop or whatever. And so he's like, you have to say Silenzio Bruno, Silenzio Bruno. And so that's like kind of the theme of the movie, is like shutting down that voice in your head that tries to hold you back and saying Silenzio Bruno. So I really liked that part, and actually I bought my son a shirt in Disney World with Luca on it, and it says Silenzio Bruno. So I'm just doing this slightly darker color in the outer corners. And I just think that it makes like some dimension on your lips. It's kind of hard to see on the video, but... And then I just go in with highlighter and highlight. And then you can use lip gloss, and I will, because I want to look a little wet and glossy since this is Luca. Ew, that's yucky. I shouldn't say wet and glossy. Just in the center. So the minuses of this movie are the weird plot jumps and the lack of development of like a real story behind these characters' motivations. That's can't be denied. But the movie has these like beautiful scenery. The animation is gorgeous. The town is beautiful. The setting is beautiful. They've got these like fantasy sequences that happen that are just like really, really cool. And the music is great because it's like old Italian music. And I recommend watching it, especially if you have a child. I mean, my son absolutely loves this movie. And he doesn't care that there's a lack of character development. You know, it's not all about what the adults want. It does a good job of sucking him in. And that's like all you can ask for, right? And it gives us the opportunity of talking about things like jealousy and, you know, why Urkel's motivations, which I don't even really understand, but you know, how he's a bully. So it really does offer a lot in terms of that. I think I'm going to add a couple gemstones from my gemstone sheet. I should use tweezers. Oh yeah, that's cool. So in the comments, you should let me know, if you're still here, you should let me know what your favorite Pixar movie is. And I gotta decide which one I'm gonna do next. I think I might do my son's favorite movie next, which you'll find out when I do it. But I really like the way this look turned out. It's kind of cool. I think I might even out. Just blend this a little bit more. I'm pretty proud. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye!